Have you ever felt the weight of supporting your children while dreaming of a peaceful retirement? In today's video, we dive deep into the heartfelt story of Mr. Liu, a retired civil servant who chose to keep his hard-earned savings for himself instead of financially supporting his children. Discover the compelling reasons behind his decision and explore the broader implications of parental love and independence in today's society. Stay with us until the end to uncover practical tips for retirees on how to balance family support with securing your future, ensuring a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Whether you're navigating similar challenges or simply curious about different perspectives on family and finances, this video offers valuable insights you won't want to miss. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me. And if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Mr. Liu from our neighborhood is a figure that many of us have come to view with a mix of curiosity and, to some extent, disbelief. His approach to family and financial matters is strikingly different from what we are used to seeing, especially in a world where parents often feel obligated to provide for their children, regardless of their situation. Mr. Liu and his wife, both former civil servants, earned good salaries throughout their careers and, as a result, managed to save up a substantial amount of money. Now in their golden years, both have retired, and their combined retirement pensions amount to more than 10,000 yuan per month, a figure that allows them to live quite comfortably. Yet, despite having this financial cushion, they've made a decision that leaves many of us scratching our heads. They have not given their children a single penny since their retirement. It's a decision that goes against the grain of traditional family dynamics, particularly in our culture, where parents often feel a deep sense of responsibility to continue supporting their children well into adulthood. Many parents even sacrifice their comfort and well-being, believing that their children should always come first. But Mr. Liu and his wife have chosen a path that defies this common narrative, and it has left people in our community perplexed. How could they, with all that money, refuse to give even a little to their children? The more traditional parents around us often say, young people today have it tough, rising costs, demanding jobs, constant pressure to succeed. Shouldn't we help our kids? After all, what's the point of having money if you can't ease your children's burdens? Yet, Mr. Liu and his wife stand firm in their decision, even when faced with this common sentiment. The intrigue around their choice has only deepened over time. As neighbors, we've all come to wonder, what could drive two parents to make such an unconventional choice? What thoughts and emotions are hidden behind this decision? After much curiosity, Mr. Liu finally opened up about the reasoning behind their actions, and his words were not only surprising but also deeply emotional. Mr. Liu began by explaining, I'm 72 years old this year, and I've been retired for 12 years. My wife, who is 5 years younger, has also been retired for a little over a decade. Both of us spent our entire careers working in state-owned enterprises, and because of this, we are fortunate enough to have good pensions. Together, we bring in more than 10,000 yuan each month. That amount is more than enough for us to live a comfortable and enjoyable life. We make sure to treat ourselves well, eating whatever we want, going on trips whenever we feel like it, and not denying ourselves any little pleasures. After working hard for half our lives, we feel we've earned this time to finally relax and enjoy ourselves. This is our time. His words resonate with the kind of peace and satisfaction that many retirees hope to achieve: freedom from financial stress, the ability to finally prioritize personal happiness, and a sense of contentment after years of hard work. But what caught everyone off guard was his next revelation. He continued, despite our comfortable situation, we've made a conscious decision never to give any of our money to our children, not a single penny. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. That simple sentence, laden with unspoken emotion, stirred something in all of us. How could parents, especially ones as financially secure as Mr. Liu and his wife, make such a choice? Most of us couldn't help but ask ourselves, could we ever decide that for our children? For Mr. Liu, however, the reasoning behind this decision was far from selfishness or indifference. It was rooted in something much deeper: years of experience, disappointment, and a hard-earned understanding of what it means to struggle. Some people may think we're being heartless, he admitted, but the truth is, our decision comes from a place of wisdom, not cruelty. We've lived through times of real hardship, times when we didn't know if we could make it through another month. My wife and I both grew up in poverty, and we know what it feels like to go without, to fight tooth and nail just to get by. It's a kind of pain you never forget, and it shapes how you see the world. We've worked tirelessly for decades to pull ourselves out of that life, and we've earned every bit of the comfort we now enjoy. But our 2 sons, well, they haven't had to endure what we did, and over the years, their behavior has left us feeling disillusioned, even cold. His voice grew heavy with emotion as he spoke, and we could sense the years of disappointment weighing down his words. It became clear that this decision was not simply about money, it was about the emotional distance that had grown between him and his children, a distance created by years of behavior that had left Mr. Liu and his wife feeling unappreciated, perhaps even taken for granted. When I look at my sons now, I realized that they don't understand the value of hard work or the sacrifices we made to provide for them. They've never had to experience the kind of hardship that shaped us. They seem to expect that we will always be there to bail them out, to give them whatever they need without question. But my wife and I have decided that it's time for us to focus on ourselves. We've spent our entire lives sacrificing for our family, and now it's our turn to enjoy the fruits of that labor. We refuse to give them any money because we want them to learn what it means to stand on their own 2 feet. They may not like it, but it's the lesson they need. Listening to Mr. Liu speak, it became clear that this decision wasn't just about finances. It was about teaching a difficult but important lesson. The frustration in his voice revealed just how painful this choice had been for him and his wife. They hadn't come to it lightly. Rather, it was the culmination of years of watching their sons fail to appreciate the value of money, responsibility, and independence. In many ways, Mr. Liu's decision was one of tough love, an act of parental responsibility that, though unconventional, was motivated by a desire to instill in their children the values they had learned the hard way. As he finished sharing his story, there was a palpable sense of emotion in the air. His words resonated deeply with all of us. His journey, his struggles, and ultimately his decision were filled with complexity and heartache. It wasn't about withholding love or support. It was about giving his sons the space to grow, to learn, and to find their way in life, just as he and his wife had done so many years before. When my wife and I entered public service, our lives took a turn for the better. We became financially stable and, like any loving parents, devoted ourselves to raising our 2 sons with care and affection. However, even with all that love, we always maintained certain boundaries. I never hesitated to spend money on things they truly needed: education, health, opportunities, but I firmly refused to splurge on things that were unnecessary or frivolous. I suppose it was my philosophy of parenting, being measured in everything we did. Maybe that balance, the ability to show love without spoiling them, is what helped shape them into the successful men they are today. From a young age, both of our boys were exceptional. They performed well academically, constantly bringing home good grades, and as parents, we were proud. Our sons attended prestigious universities, and after graduation, they landed solid jobs in first-tier cities. They built their own lives, got married, and started their own families. Everything seemed perfect, smooth, and stable. People admired us, constantly remarking on how well we had raised our children. Imagine that, they would say, 2 working parents, and yet both sons turned out to be white-collar workers in big cities, thriving in their careers. To many, it was the picture-perfect story of parental success. But what many didn't see was the immense amount of support my wife and I provided behind the scenes. Yes, both of our sons were brilliant and hardworking, but we were always there to help them build their foundations. After our eldest son graduated from college, I used my connections to help him secure a position in a state-owned company. It was the kind of job most people would dream of, offering stability and security. When he decided to get married, we stepped in once again, this time paying the down payment for his new home, a sum of about 200,000 yuan later on. When he needed a car, we contributed tens of thousands more. We spared no expense when it came to setting him up for success. Our younger son had a more challenging path. His major in college wasn't in high demand, and after graduation, he struggled to find a job. We could see the toll it was taking on him, so my wife and I stepped in, paying for his further studies in the hopes that it would open up more opportunities. It wasn't until he was nearly 30 years old that he finally found a stable job. Even then, when he got married, we spent over 100,000 yuan on his dowry, ensuring that his transition into married life was smooth. We even bought homes for both brothers, spending every last bit of savings we had accumulated over half a lifetime to make sure they had the best possible start in life. And then, just when we thought we could finally slow down and enjoy our retirement, our sons had children. Without hesitation, my wife and I stepped up once more. My wife retired at the age of 50, far earlier than she had planned, just so she could take care of our eldest grandson. I retired at 60 to care for our youngest granddaughter. For years, our lives revolved around raising our grandchildren, filling the role of caregivers while our sons and their wives worked. It wasn't until the children finally started school that we were able to take a step back and breathe. In truth, we gave everything to our sons and their families. Everything. Every ounce of our energy, every bit of our savings. We had worked so hard all our lives, and when the time came, we gave it all away, expecting little in return except for the hope that, one day, they would take care of us the way we had taken care of them. But that's where things started to unravel. Despite everything we had done, the sacrifices we had made, and the countless ways we had put our sons' needs above our own, what we received in return wasn't the filial piety we had hoped for. Instead, what we got was a sense of entitlement from both of them. Our sons, who had grown up with every opportunity, seemed to think that our financial support was never ending. Rather than stepping up and taking care of us in our old age, they continued to expect us to take care of them. Whether it was money or time, the expectations never ceased. It was as if no matter how much we gave, it was never enough. The emotional toll of realizing that our sons had come to rely on us not out of love, but out of convenience has been heartbreaking. It's not that they don't love us at all, it's that they don't seem to understand the sacrifices we made for them. And worse, they don't seem to care. After a lifetime of working, saving, and giving everything we had for the sake of our family, we now find ourselves at a crossroads. We thought that with our selfless dedication, we had earned their respect, their care, and perhaps even their gratitude. But instead of nurturing that bond, they've allowed it to wither, thinking only of how much more they can take from us. Now, as we sit in the twilight of our lives, my wife and I are left wondering where we went wrong. We gave our sons everything they could ever need: a home, education, love, and unwavering support, yet in the end, all that remains is a sense of betrayal. They seem more concerned with what they can continue to gain from us than with being there for us when we need them most. The stark realization that we've given our all, only to find that there is no reciprocation, no filial piety, is devastating. We always believed that by giving so much we were building a bond that would last a lifetime. Instead, we've discovered that sometimes, no matter how much you give, it's never enough. It's a painful lesson to learn, one that leaves us feeling both angry and heartbroken. After dedicating our entire lives to our sons, we're left with the bitter truth that perhaps we did too much. By giving them everything, maybe we inadvertently took away their sense of responsibility, their ability to appreciate the value of hard work, and the importance of family. And now, all we can do is live with that painful realization, hoping that one day they will see how much we've done for them and understand that love is not just about taking, but also about giving in return. As parents, it's natural to expect that when we grow older, our children will come home often to visit, particularly during holidays and festivals. After all, isn't it a common belief that when there are elderly parents at home, the children should return, not just out of obligation, but out of love and respect? Unfortunately, our situation is different. Our two sons rarely come home, even during the most important times of the year. It's something that has pained us deeply over the years, particularly because we had always imagined that our bond with them, after everything we sacrificed, would remain strong. But reality has been far from what we had hoped. Our eldest son, who lives just 300 kilometers away, only a 4-hour drive, hardly visits. He comes home only once a year, typically during Chinese New Year, and even then, it feels more like an obligatory pit stop than a heartfelt visit. He arrives empty-handed and leaves with gifts, taking more than he ever brings. I still remember one year vividly. Our neighbors' children were arriving with bags filled with gifts, fruits, food, New Year's supplies, generously showering their parents with love and appreciation. But when our son arrived in his expensive SUV, he had only brought 2 pieces of clothing for my wife and me, without any traditional New Year gifts. That stung. But what hurt even more was that while other parents received red envelopes from their children on New Year's Eve, a symbolic gesture of respect and care, our son didn't even bother. The only red envelopes we received were from our grandchildren, who seemed to understand this simple act of kindness better than their father. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. It was almost laughable, in a tragic way. As parents, we had raised him, given him everything, and now we found ourselves barely acknowledged. He would stay for a short time, just enough to fulfill the bare minimum of a visit, and before the New Year celebrations were even over, he would be packing up to leave. But before leaving, he would raid our kitchen, going into our small warehouse, and helping himself to the New Year goods we had stocked for the entire family. He would take whatever he could carry: rice, oil, snacks, even dried meats, and load up his car, leaving us with next to nothing. It was as though our home had become his supermarket. One year, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I confronted him about his behavior. I told him how much it hurt to see him act this way, as if we were nothing more than a convenience. But his response left me speechless. He looked at me and said, "Anyway, you're both so old now, you can't eat that much, and it would just go to waste sitting here." His words hit me like a blow to the heart. The son I had raised, the boy I had loved and nurtured, now spoke to me with such coldness, such disregard. It felt as though he saw us as a burden, something to be tolerated rather than cherished. But if I thought our eldest son's behavior was disappointing, our younger son was even worse. He had always been more demanding and more entitled, but over the years his sense of entitlement grew to a level that I never could have imagined. When we helped him buy a house, I thought that would be enough, that he would finally feel secure and appreciate what we had done for him. But shortly after, he came to me again, asking for money to buy a car. This time, his tone was so arrogant, so presumptuous, that it left me feeling deeply hurt. "Dad, I want to buy a car," he said, without so much as a hint of politeness. "Quickly transfer 130,000 yuan due. You want me to do it now." The way he spoke made me feel as though I was the child, and he was the father, demanding, entitled, and utterly disrespectful. I felt a surge of discomfort and anger rise within me. It wasn't about the money. We could afford to give him 130,000 yuan, but it was the way he asked, as if it were his right, as if we owed it to him. I refused, not because we didn't have the money, but because I couldn't stand his attitude. He already had a car. Buying another one was pure indulgence, a waste. And yet, instead of respecting our decision, he continued to find new ways to demand money from us. If it wasn't for a car, it was for something else: renovations, a business venture, anything he could think of to extract more money from us. Each time, it was tens of thousands of yuan that he wanted, and each time, the request came with the same sense of entitlement. Over time, I began to see through his intentions. It wasn't about needing money for a real purpose. It was about greed, about taking as much as he could from us, because he had learned to expect that we would always give. But I couldn't continue to enable this behavior. My wife and I had already sacrificed so much, and while we were willing to help when they needed it, this was different. This wasn't about necessity, this was about pure greed. And so I started giving him less and less each time he asked. Just enough to help, but not enough to fuel his growing sense of entitlement. As parents, we had always dreamed of growing old with the love and support of our sons. We had imagined holidays filled with laughter, visits that were frequent and filled with joy. But instead, we are left with a bitter sense of disappointment. We poured everything we had into raising them, our time, our money, our love, and in return, we've been met with ingratitude, entitlement, and selfishness. It's a painful realization to come to, but one that we've had to accept. We gave everything, and in the end, we're left wondering if it was all for nothing. Unexpectedly, after I refused to give my younger son money for another frivolous purchase, his attitude toward us began to change drastically. It was as if he thought we had committed some terrible wrong by not giving in to his demands. Whenever he visited after that, he was cold, distant, and indifferent. He barely said more than a few words to us, and as soon as he finished eating, he would leave, no matter how much we asked him to stay a little longer. His response was always the same, heartlessly saying that it was uncomfortable to stay at home and that he preferred the comfort of his own house. I felt a deep sadness and a growing distance between us. My heart ached with every visit, as it became more and more obvious that our sons, who we had poured so much love and sacrifice into, were slowly drifting away from us. The same coldness came from our eldest son. Years ago, my wife was hospitalized due to severe osteoarthritis. We covered all the medical expenses ourselves. We didn't ask for their help financially. But my wife, being a mother, still longed for her sons to visit her during her recovery. She hoped for nothing more than their presence, their love, their support just to visit, something that shouldn't be too much to ask for. Yet both of them, in their ways, found excuses to avoid visiting, as though coming to see their mother was a burden or, worse, like it would cost them something valuable. Neither son returned home, not even for a brief visit. All we received were brief, impersonal phone calls. There was no warmth, no real concern in their voices. It was as if coming home to see their mother, who had been there for them all their lives, was simply too much of an inconvenience. That period was especially painful for my wife, not physically, but emotionally. While she lay in the hospital bed, struggling through what should have been a simple surgery, she watched other patients waiting solely by their children holding their hands, helping with their care, and providing comfort with their presence. Meanwhile, we were alone. It was just the two of us, leaning on each other for support, and it was heartbreaking. My wife, who had given everything for our sons, was left feeling abandoned by the very children she had raised with so much love. The emotional pain she experienced far outweighed any physical discomfort from the surgery. We felt truly pitiful. Not long after my wife began her slow recovery, I had my accident. One day, I fell and fractured my foot. It was a severe injury, and with my wife still not fully healed from her surgery, she couldn't take care of me. She was already in pain, and I didn't want to burden her further. Naturally, I thought this would be the time when our sons would step up, finally showing the care and responsibility I believed they were capable of. I called both of them, explaining how serious my condition was, hoping they would see the urgency. But once again, they both made excuses. My eldest son said he was too busy with work to come, while my younger son complained of not feeling well. I tried to explain how much we needed their help, but their responses were cold, distant, and indifferent. There was no urgency in their voices, no desire to be there for us. In the end, I had to hire a caregiver to help me recover, as there was no one else. My wife couldn't manage on her own, and our sons were nowhere to be found. But what truly broke my heart was what I discovered during this time. While I was recovering, I learned through my grandchildren that my eldest son had taken his family on a seaside vacation. At the same time, my younger son had gone on a hiking trip with his friends. They had both found time to enjoy their lives, to indulge in leisure and relaxation, while their parents were left to struggle alone. The realization that they could so easily prioritize their enjoyment over our well-being crushed me. The emotional pain of their neglect was far worse than the physical pain of my injury. After experiencing this series of betrayals, both my wife and I came to the same conclusion. People around us would often ask, "Do you still plan on giving your savings to your sons after everything they've done?" And we realized that the answer was no. We had to protect ourselves now because clearly our sons were not going to be there for us in the way we had always hoped. If they could treat us with such coldness while we were still alive and able to take care of ourselves, how much worse would it be when we could no longer fend for ourselves? We had to face the reality that they were more interested in what they could take from us than in showing us love and care. From that point on, we made a firm decision. We would hold on to our savings, not giving a single penny to our sons. Even in emergencies, we would reserve our funds for ourselves. We realized that we could no longer rely on them for support in our old age. Instead, we would use our money to take care of ourselves. If the time ever came when we could no longer manage on our own, we wouldn't burden our sons. We would go to a nursing home where we could buy the care we needed. Yes, a nursing home lacks the warmth and intimacy of family care, but we've come to believe that it's a better option than relying on sons who treat us so heartlessly. At least in a nursing home, we would be paying for a service, and we could be sure that our needs would be met without having to beg for attention. There, we could have a sense of security, comfort, and dignity, something we've sadly realized we can no longer expect from our children. The painful truth is that our sons, who we gave everything to, have distanced themselves from us emotionally and practically. We never imagined that the day would come when we would have to protect ourselves from the very people we raised, but here we are. And now, we are focused on ensuring our well-being, because if our sons can't be there for us now, we know they won't be there when we need them most. It's a heartbreaking reality, but one we've had to come to terms with. Our future is now in our own hands. Perhaps Mr. Liu's situation is not something we encounter every day, but that doesn't mean it isn't real or that it couldn't happen to any of us. In today's world, human emotions have become so fragile, almost as thin as paper. The once strong bonds of the family seem to be eroding, and familial affection just isn't what it used to be. Many of us have seen this shift in our own lives. We live in a time where young people are increasingly focused on their own freedom and personal enjoyment. They chase after their dreams and independence, often at the expense of their relationships with their parents. True filial piety, the deep respect and care for one's parents, is becoming harder to find. We see this all around us, young adults moving away, losing touch with their roots, and becoming less inclined to care for the parents who raised them. As we age, it's crucial to protect ourselves, particularly when it comes to our financial security. Retirement savings should be held onto tightly, not just as a safety net, but as a form of independence. While it's natural for parents to want to help their children, especially in times of trouble, we must strike a balance. We shouldn't give so much that it jeopardizes our well-being. Every child must experience the ups and downs of life, and they need to face their trials. As parents, we can help within our means, offering support when necessary, but it's equally important that they learn to stand on their own. After all, if we give too much, it's not just our financial future that's at risk, it's the lesson of resilience that we rob them of. Many elderly people, out of love and devotion, consider spending their retirement years helping their children raise their grandchildren. It's an age-old tradition, one that has brought purpose and joy to many retirees. But times are changing, and many young couples today prefer to raise their children independently. They no longer rely on their parents in the same way, and in some cases, they outright refuse help, wanting to maintain control over their own parenting choices. While this shift allows young parents more freedom, it can leave the elderly feeling isolated, with a void where their role as caretakers used to be. Without grandchildren to care for, retirement can sometimes feel empty or even aimless. If you're fortunate enough to have a strong pension, retirement life can be comfortable. But for those who don't have that financial cushion, life can become stressful. Many elderly individuals find themselves worrying about money, feeling anxious about how to make ends meet, even after they've left the workforce. The thought of growing old without financial security can be terrifying, and the need to earn more money in retirement becomes an urgent reality. After all, at 60 years old, many people still feel healthy and capable. They may want to work for another 5 or 6 years, not just for the income, but to feel useful and engaged. But what kind of work can retirees do? There are several job options that retirees can explore. And today I'd like to share 4 types of work that might be suitable for older adults. The first option is working as a community security guard. This is a job that many retired seniors take up, as it offers a relatively easy and stable income without being physically demanding. If you're retired but still in good health, applying to be a security guard in your local community could be a good fit. In my neighborhood, several of the security guards are retired seniors. Their duties are simple: sitting in the security booth, reading newspapers, and pressing a button to open the gate for residents or visitors. It's a job that's more about presence than action, and it's not too demanding for older individuals. However, it's important to be mindful of where you seek security work. High-end communities often have stricter management requirements and may not hire retirees, or if they do, the workload can be more intense than in lower-end communities. It's better to aim for medium to low-end communities, where the work tends to be more relaxed and less physically taxing. Keep in mind, though, that even in these roles, there's often the need for night shifts. My uncle became a security guard after his retirement, and while the work isn't difficult, he does have to do night shifts every week. This can be exhausting for someone in their later years, so it's important to be mentally and physically prepared for this aspect of the job. In terms of how to find these types of positions, the best approach is through personal connections. If you have friends or acquaintances who work in community management, they can often help you find a job. But if you don't have anyone to turn to, another option is to inquire directly with your community's property management office. They often have information about available positions or can guide you to someone who does. Taking on a part-time or full-time job after retirement can provide more than just financial stability. It can bring a sense of purpose, structure, and social interaction that many retirees miss. Even though these jobs may not pay much, they can give you the security and peace of mind that comes with staying active and engaged in society. Whether it's working as a security guard or finding other types of work, it's essential to ensure that you are living a fulfilling and financially stable life in your later years. Ultimately, the goal is to find balance. As we age, it's important to recognize that we can't rely solely on our children for support. It's crucial to hold on to our financial security, to safeguard our future, and to maintain our independence. At the same time, We must continue to play a role in our children's lives, offering them guidance and support when needed, but not at the cost of our well-being. Life is unpredictable, and we must prepare ourselves for every eventuality, ensuring that in our old age, we are well cared for, whether by our means or by the systems we choose to put in place. The second type of job that retirees can consider is becoming a part-time nanny. This role is not the traditional live-in nanny you might think of, but rather someone who offers flexible assistance, catering to specific needs. Take Mrs. Gu, for example, a 52-year-old woman who retired 2 years ago with a modest monthly pension of over 3,000 yuan. Her situation was unique. Her husband had passed away many years ago, and her only daughter was still pursuing her master's degree. So Mrs. Gu found herself with plenty of free time, but a deep sense of unfulfillment. She tried odd jobs, like working at a supermarket or watching over stores, but these roles never quite gave her the satisfaction she was looking for. She longed for a job that felt more meaningful. One day, while sitting on a bench in her community, lost in thought, she struck up a conversation with an old acquaintance. He shared that while he was still physically capable of caring for himself, he found it increasingly difficult to handle all the household chores on his own. His only daughter was married and living far away, so he didn't want to burden her. While he considered hiring a full-time live-in nanny, he felt that such a service was unnecessary for his current needs. What he needed was someone to come in occasionally, perhaps a few times a week, to cook meals and help with house cleaning. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you're here with me. That conversation sparked an idea in Mrs. Gu. She realized there were probably many other elderly people in her community facing similar challenges, not needing full-time care, but rather occasional help. Inspired by this, she decided to become a new type of nanny, one who didn't live with her clients but offered services as needed. Mrs. Gu posted messages in her community group, offering her services to cook meals for elderly residents or assist younger families who needed help with chores. To her surprise, she received inquiries that very night from the children of 3 elderly people. Her new role started simply, cooking meals and delivering them to the elderly according to their preferences. But soon, Mrs. Gu found herself offering more comprehensive services like cleaning homes, running errands, and even accompanying her clients to medical appointments. What she initially thought would be a small, part-time job blossomed into something far more meaningful. Mrs. Gu realized that it wasn't just about the physical help she was offering. Many of these elderly individuals felt neglected by their families and craved companionship. They didn't only need someone to clean their homes or cook their meals, they needed someone to talk to, someone who would listen to their stories and empathize with their feelings. Over time, her clients opened up to her about their lives, and Mrs. Gu found herself forming strong emotional bonds with the people she helped. This job, which started as a simple way to fill her time, enriched her life in unexpected ways. The interactions with the elderly gave her a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Realizing there was a growing demand for such services, Mrs. Gu invited some of her retired colleagues to join her, and together, they formed a small team. They began providing similar services throughout their community, creating a supportive environment not only for the elderly but for themselves as well. The third type of work retirees might consider is setting up a small stall to sell goods. For those who have saved some money and are looking for a bit of independence, selling goods like fruit, snacks, or even homegrown produce at a local market or outside a supermarket can be a rewarding venture. This kind of self-employment does come with some financial risk, so it's not recommended for retirees who are on a tight budget. There's always the possibility that the business may not succeed, but for those who have a little extra cash and enjoy the idea of being their boss, it could be a fulfilling option. Additionally, if you happen to have a garden and grow your vegetables, selling your produce can allow you to make some extra income while sharing the fruits of your labor with your community. The fourth option is working as a dishwasher in a restaurant. While many retirees, particularly men, might gravitate toward jobs like security, women often seek out roles that better suit their skills and physical capacities. My aunt, for instance, found a job as a dishwasher after she retired. She works during lunch and dinner hours at a local restaurant, which leaves her with plenty of time to rest during the day. Although the pay isn't high, it's enough to provide her with a little extra income and a sense of independence. Similar roles include cleaning positions in hotels or smaller businesses. These jobs offer flexibility and allow retirees to remain active without taking on too much responsibility. Of course, it's important to remember that while earning extra income is beneficial, retirees should prioritize their health and well-being. Jobs with low physical intensity are crucial to avoid overexertion, which could lead to more serious health issues. Retirement should be a time to enjoy life, and work should be a secondary concern. After decades of hard work, this stage of life should be about balance, earning enough to feel secure without compromising your health or happiness. Even if you're not earning a lot of money in retirement, a simple lifestyle paired with careful saving can still provide a sense of security and contentment. The key is finding ways to stay active, engaged, and financially stable, all while enjoying the freedom that retirement brings. Whether it's offering part-time help to elderly neighbors, starting a small business, or working in a restaurant, retirees have many options to continue contributing to society, staying mentally and physically engaged, and finding fulfillment. As we come to the end of this video, we've explored several ways retirees can continue to stay active, earn extra income, and find fulfillment in their later years. Whether it's becoming a part-time nanny like Mrs. Gu, setting up a small stall, working as a dishwasher, or exploring security jobs, there are many ways to make the most of retirement without compromising health and well-being. So, what have you learned so far? Which of these options resonated with you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below and share one thing you've learned from this video that you plan to bring into practice in your own life. Whether it's finding meaningful work or thinking more about financial independence, we want to know how this information will impact your journey. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this.